What is up, Ridge Runner Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Ridge Runners Live. We are so excited to have Jaime Fensterl and Jamie Hanks, two Jamies, joining us for this show. If you've been involved in the Ohio ultra running scene at all, I'm sure you've heard of these two lovely folks. But this year we are celebrating them specifically for Jaime Fensterl's win in the women's race at the Shawnee 50 and Jamie Hanks' second place in the men's race there. So without any further introduction, how are y'all doing tonight?
Doing great.
I'm excellent. Better than I deserve, as Dave Ramsey would say on his podcast.
Awesome. That is great. As always, I am Cam Wrench, the sixth man of the nation, hosting today with Nick Voss, our first show together. And fun fact, Nick Voss is actually, if I remember correctly, the first person that I ever met at an ultramarathon race.
Cool.
I think that's right. Thunder Bunny in maybe 2016, 17?
18. 2016.
18, okay.
That's
right. You would have been like 12 then.
Hey, hold on. I graduated high school in 2015. Okay. Was not an ultra runner yet. But yeah, that is so great. We're so excited to have our very first Cam and Voss show. And of course, our first show with two folks who have the same name. And Jamie and Jamie, we're so happy to have you all on tonight. Let's start with our usual first question. What are y'all drinking tonight?
I am
Jamie,
layman. Sorry, I've gone with water because I realized I have a long training run tomorrow and I already had beer earlier tonight.
It's a solid choice. Yeah. I am drinking like the OG craft beer Fat Tire. Yeah. Standard. Pretty good.
A little Colorado action there.
Exactly.
I've got a Colorado beer as well. It's from a brewery called Weldworks Brewing. It's a double IPA called Advanced Fluid Dynamics.
That sounds delicious.
And I've got a Western beer, but not a Colorado beer, a Bitterroot Brewing from down the valley in Hamilton here. Huckleberry Honey Ale. What's the difference between an ale and an IPA? I'm not quite sure, but all in on everything Huckleberry, as I have been since I moved here to Missoula. So excited to be having this tonight and excited to dig into our two guests Shawnee 50 race. And let's go ahead and start with, something really interesting going into these things is that you both kind of had a different, relatively different seasons going into this with success at the 100-mile distance before this, but then kind of different priorities, right? So Jaime Fensterl, I will probably be calling Jamie Hanks just Hanks or James, because I know you've done that before, just to alleviate that confusion. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the reason that you signed up for this race for and why you were excited to do it?
Yeah, so it's always been a race that I've loved. I did it the first year in 2018, and last year during the kind of the COVID edition, it was really fun. We actually went down, and that's where I met Jamie Hanks and ran with some friends and just did it for fun. But I really wanted something to look forward to challenge myself, and it's been kind of a rough year. I had two DNFs at the 100-mile distance within 5 weeks of each other, and it was kind of a hard pill to swallow. I think having both of them happen within a short period of time, and I really wanted to kind of feel like I was back on my feet and able to still execute a relatively strong performance after that. So I think this race was really just sort of like special in the sense that I knew the course. I really, Michael's a great race director. He's also my coach. So it was just kind of a special place to be and to meet the people that I kind of knew there, knew the course. And it's a beautiful place to be.
Absolutely. And what about you, James?
Yeah, I like that. I can really empathize with that, Jamie, that, the comeback season and everything. And in 2019, I had two DNFs that summer. My first one at Mohican in June, and it was due to some issues that I just didn't maintain during the race, and also at Wasatch later in the summer. So that was a little bit demoralizing, and I wanted to follow that up with a solid summer of races in 2021 with the virus slowing down and the races back to normal. So I was able to, start it off in June with a nice finish at Mohican. I went into it healthy, and I knew after that race that I definitely want to try to do the duo of maybe what I would call Ohio's best true trail ultras, and that is with the Shawnee 50 in October. So the whole entire summer, I was really looking forward to getting back to one of the SEO TR events. And my main goal is just to stay healthy and not have any IT band issues like I have had in the past seasons, or other issues I've had with motivation to just get out there and train hard. So kind of leading up to this one, I've been able to bring some variety in, and I showed up to both of the races. Very happy to be a part of the events again, and excited to just, get out and try to run hard in the Ohio forests.
Absolutely. Great answers there from both of y'all. And so one thing going into that I find really interesting is, at least from James's perspective, is you spent a lot of the summer doing more hiking and climbing, and because you're a friend of mine, I got to hear about a lot of those adventures. Did that play into, you showing up at the Shawnee starting line feeling maybe less fit overall running wise, but happier to be there and more excited about what the event was going to be?
Absolutely. I actually was planning on doing the Pacific Crest Trail this spring, and due to some family reasons, and also, just the fact that the West is kind of in a blaze right now. It was very, very hot at the beginning with the drought. I decided to just stay in Ohio and really reap the benefits of the season opening back up. And since I was doing other activities, I think it helped me balance the volume of running. And that's something I've always had a little bit of a hard time with. I never necessarily would have called myself a high volume runner. And I'm trying to even kind of separate myself from that identity as just a runner in general, because I initially think, I got into running because of mainly I wanted to do the Boston Marathon, and through, kind of realizing that wasn't my forte, I decided to sort of just focus on specific trail training. And as everyone knows, it's harder to get out onto actual trails throughout the week if you're working a full-time job. So I would, try to limit the amount of road running, which to me lessens the impacts on my joints, and exchange that for trail time. So I did do training leading up to Mohican and Shawnee alike. A lot around my local trails at Dillon State Park and Blackhand Gorge, which both offer some pretty decent elevation change and course or terrain that's similar to what you see at Mohican and Shawnee. Specifically, Dillon State Park offers a lot of the rolling terrain that you see up at Mohican, and the routes and everything. And at Blackhand Gorge, it has more of the double track, steep, sustained inclines that you see at Shawnee. So doing a little bit of climbing mixed into there also, and at the local rock climbing area, helped kind of build up, I think, some of my joints and muscles around them to deal with the impact of those races. So I think doing the cross training kind of helped mentally keep me in the game, but also just, give me something else to focus on, because there's a lot of fun in the outdoors, and not all of it's related to running. So that was a long-winded answer.
No, it was, but it was a good answer. And it kind of covered what I was asking in that question. And now, frankly, I don't know as much about what your summer was like, Jamie, other than your attempts at Mohican and Burning River. That's just obviously due to the fact that I lived in a tiny house Jamie built. And we never had that relationship. I assume you'd make a decent landlord as well, but so why don't you take us through, what your training specifically for the Shawnee 50 looked like, and what your goals were going into this race, and how it sort of fit into this year once you realized you were going to be on the starting line.
Yeah, so I moved to Columbus in January of this year, and one thing I found here is I definitely miss the access to the trails. And, as Jamie mentioned, during the week is impossible for me. I'm about an hour away from any decent trails. So really, my main focus was just to start doing, and kind of working with Michael, doing some more variety in my training. So, really adding in some speed work and intensity. Because I think what I had found myself getting into was I was always getting consistent mileage, but I wasn't really I was never really running hard and I was never really running easy. And I think over time that kind of caught up with me, that I was sort of stuck in this, what felt like a very consistent, but like I couldn't get any better kind of pace. So we worked on, bringing in some different interval workouts. And then, of course, my Saturday run is typically when I do get to Mohican or Clear Creek. Those are the two most often that I hit. Sometimes Great Seal as well. So I feel like there's options from Columbus, but they're all at least about an hour away. So it definitely is something, during the week that isn't really attainable for me. So I did have a little bit of, I guess, apprehension about the hills at Shawnee, just knowing that I don't hit hill training very, very frequently. But, I think I really found that the interval training for me did give some strength. I think both to my legs as well as just cardiovascularly, it did help a lot. I don't do a lot of cross training like Jamie does. I do some yoga and a little bit of biking, but I'm primarily a runner. I feel like I'm not good at anything else. So, but yeah, I think just, overall my mileage was a little higher, probably going into Shawnee than it had been. I had been doing more biking in previous training cycles. So yeah, that's about how I approached it. And I would say I showed up relaxed, but a little uncertain of how my body was going to feel.
Can I say one more thing about cross training?
Yeah, of course.
Dive in.
The thing about it is, though, it's like a lot of the stuff I do that might be considered cross training, I don't really feel like it is. It's more of just like something to take my mind off of the running training. I'm really bad with like doing any sort of core exercises or gym routines. I know, Cam, you have it dialed in with your stretches and bands and all the trinkets and stuff, and I have a couple of those things that I like to incorporate, but I'm really bad at it. Like I would call myself very lazy, so I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression.
Oh, I should mention, I guess my cross training, one thing I do consistently do is I'm obsessed with my Peloton. So I have I use the Peloton app and I do core exercises every day. So that is my
Nice.
one like testament. And I think having a strong core really does help. People always say that, and I think I've noticed a difference this year in doing core every day, at least 5 minutes.
Nice. And I think the core kind of comes from it's a byproduct of rock climbing too. So that's why I do like it as a cross training routine, because you really do have to have core tension in order to do any sort of hard climbing. So that's probably where I get it from, but yoga should be included in that, I think, more in the future. I can see where the benefits would come from, or just designated core exercises. So.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like you guys both have that in common, and I totally agree with you guys. And I can kind of relate to Hanks a little bit. I'm not the best at being consistent with a lot of that strength work and core work and things like that. So that's good to hear. And I think it's good for a lot of new runners to understand that the core is kind of like, not to just say it's your core, but it's the center. It's the center of your mass, and it's really what controls everything out to your peripherals. So we talk a lot about in a lot of our groups about what fatigue actually is, and in my opinion, fatigue, I think, is as the form breaks down. And so if you can maintain a strong core, and through the course of an ultra marathon, the more you can maintain your good running form, you're going to be in better shape. It's when that running form starts to break down, when you're tired, that that really challenges and puts a lot of strain on the rest of the joints and muscles and things like that too. So that's really good.
So that can break down with high mileage, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the longer you go. So talk a little bit. I kind of realized before the show today that you both also were involved with the inaugural Shawnee. So that's pretty cool. If we can just take a little bit of dive back in time, We'll start with you, Jamie. How did you initially find out about the race, and what was your motivation going in to the inaugural year?
So actually, I had just started trail running that year. Well, I ran my first 50K in May of 2018. And I remember telling my friends I only wanted to do a 50K. I never want to do anything longer than that. I'm just here for 50K. And that escalated quickly. I definitely joined a crazy group of people up in Cleveland, Akron area. But I guess what appealed to me was just reading that it was like the hardest 50 miler in Ohio. And I thought, I want to do something like really scary for my first 50. I want to do something that's like legit hard. And so, I signed up for it, and I remember being totally terrified and being like, I don't know if I can do this. And I will admit there were definitely some tears during my first 50. I remember seeing my husband at mile 20 and being like, I'm so tired. I have 50K to go. I don't know how to do this. But I think it was an amazing experience. Like at the end to be like, wow, like I did this and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But at the same time, I loved it. And it was just so beautiful there. I just remember just how remote Shawnee is, and how like alone, but at peace you are there. I don't know. It's a really great place. And especially the dark side. I love that section there. And yeah, so that was, I guess for me, it was just the challenge of like, my first 50K felt really like good. I did really well. And I thought, well, I guess I'll try to step it up.
Did you have any idea what 12,000 feet of up and down was going to feel like, though? That's my question.
That's the funny part.
We can't prepare for that in Ohio. I know it's hard.
No, I remember doing hill repeats, and I was on the Stairmaster at the gym and like trying to like, do like stairs and things. And then I remember being there, and like I said, I hit mile 20 and was like, these climbs are out of this world. Like I think just my legs had never experienced anything like it. And in the end, I did okay, but I definitely remember going in being like, I can run this in 12 hours. That's no problem. Quickly realizing that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, funnily enough, Jamie, actually, that same tagline is what got me to the Shawnee 50 race that same year for the inaugural one. I remember Michael Owen sent out his Sea Otter email list. It was like Ohio's hardest ultra marathon. And I saw it, and it was in the summer, and I immediately took it to my physical therapy appointment with me. And to comment on James's point there, it's like, there's a reason why I'm doing core exercise. It's because I've paid people to remind me to do them. And I was dealing with like some really serious sciatic issues at the time. And she was just like, absolutely not. No way. Don't do this. And so I volunteered.
Yeah, it'll beat you up. The inaugural year, I was a total Gumby showing up to that race. I mean, I had a pretty good season. I did some cool races. I actually was able to finish Leadville that year, and that was sort of a confidence boost. But it didn't really teach me how to run in cold weather, even though it was above 10,000 feet a lot of the time. Because I totally freaked out the morning of the first year. I brought my puffy jacket with me, thinking that I needed to stay warm the whole day because of it was snowing right out of the gate in the morning. And I just think that first year I went into it with a sort of like a fear mindset, and I kept going through the aid stations thinking like, if I can just get to the next one, I'll be fine. But I wasn't very present the whole day. I was just really digging deep to get a finish. And there was times in 2018 that I seriously considered DNFing the 50-mile distance. And that's something I don't ever want to do anymore, because I feel like it's one of those things where you can, if you really need to, you can walk out of 50, and usually there's enough time to do it. But that year I did consider it, and then I gritted my teeth and made it to the end. But yeah, I first heard about the Shawnee Forest when I was in college, and I always heard that it was called the Little Smokies of Ohio. That's kind of its nickname, because it has the fog that sets in the valleys, and you'll get the beautiful landscape shot of the mist rising up, and it's layered, and the mountains look like they're folded over each other. So it kind of was an inspiring race, and I knew no matter what that season that it was in my heart, and I'm from Ohio and I need to do it. So the inaugural year, it definitely beat everyone down that was out there.
Yeah, and just
It
to
will-
remind
yeah.
anyone who's watching right now who ran just this past year and they're wondering, snow, what could you possibly be talking about? It was in early November, which is still pretty early for snow in Ohio. So it was certainly one of the first cold days. But I know you might be thinking, if you're watching, you're thinking, what? It was hot this year. But that is, also classic Ohio. It could be hot or cold from day to day there.
And the streams were higher that day.
I was gonna say
They
the
were-
water
yeah, to the
crossings
ankles.
were nuts. It was just like water crossing after water crossing, and it was like 25 degrees. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fires at the aid stations.
Mhm.
and also Fireball. I did distinctly remember them having
Yeah.
Fireball, which I may have taken.
Me too. Yeah.
That sounds like a
That's
Chadwick thing.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I distinctly remember that difference from 2019, the year when I attempted the Shawnee 50 in 2018, when I just volunteered it. Preparing myself mentally. I was living in Chicago at the time. Like it's gonna be like there's gonna be big stream crossings and there's so much climbing. And then I showed up and there was as much climbing as I thought, but there was not like a drop of water anywhere in the forest. It was bone dry. Which brings me to my question is, since y'all have ran this on both dates, which date do you really prefer for this race? Do you think that, the early October, you're getting more of the colors and the weather's a little bit calmer, or that 2018 year was just hard for every reason in the book? Do you think you'd ever want to replicate that and go back to Shawnee when just the weather's nasty and you've got to really fight for every inch?
I'm a 100% a freeze baby, so I'm all a fan of it being warmer. And I also have almost died at Shawnee from hypothermia in January. That's another story. But yes, so I favor the warmer weather.
Truthfully, I'm teetering between both. I can't give a true answer on it because I've had issues with both sides of it. When it's warm, the seed ticks have always given me a problem down there. In 2020, during the fun run, I had a terrible infestation of them all over my body. And this year was just the same. All up my legs, I had massive tick bites everywhere the day after that led to itches the entire week that were pretty bad. But that's usually when the seed ticks are out, is when it's warm. So in a few weeks, they could be completely gone, which might be nice to have it, colder, so people don't have to experience that. Jamie, did you have any seed ticks land on you this year?
Yeah, now that you say that, it's true. I had a lot of bites as well after the race, and I don't remember that from the first year. So yeah, I guess that is a benefit. There are also sections that are more overgrown when it's, there's more still foliage on the trees. So yeah, I guess it can go both ways. I just know for me, I struggle mentally. I struggle in the cold for a long time.
Yeah, Michael, he confided that if it would have been a couple weeks later, there probably would have been none out there. They die off as soon as the temperatures drop down into the low 40s at nighttime. So that is one benefit of it being later in the year, because they get pretty heinous.
I wonder if they're worse on the dark side, because I was in the simple 50K and I didn't get any. And I think there's also something to be said about certain people being a little more susceptible to them too, because I know Michael seems to get them every time he goes, even when sometimes others, might not, who he's with. But yeah, something I'm maybe just, I know it's a lot more overgrown down on the dark side, especially after you go through Pond Lick. So maybe that was it, but yeah, I didn't have a single one. That's for sure. And I don't remember anyone from the 50K saying that they got bites either. So kudos to you all for weathering that other unknown, so maybe somewhat unknown challenge.
Yeah, Michael might not want me talking about how bad the seed ticks were, but they can be truly bad. Like I was miserable the week afterwards, and last year, like one of the worst scenarios I've ever had with insects. It even made me think afterwards. I might not want to do it next year, but I do want to do it next year. So we'll see.
The other interesting thing too is I think one thing that maybe is not just specific to Ohio, but specific to a lot of the races in the East half, is that there aren't really a lot of, there definitely are winter races, but there aren't a lot of well-known winter races. So I think
Yeah.
it's also kind of cool, having a race go a little bit later, and dealing with the cold weather a little bit. I mean, certainly, yeah, some people, it's not going to be their thing. I'm somebody who's always run better in the cold. I don't think I've ever done an ultra marathon in the cold. So that's a little bit different, but I distinctly remember a lot of, long training runs feeling better for me personally.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we're almost 30 minutes into the show. We haven't really even started talking about this year's race day itself. I think that's a sign. It's just such a special race. We've got to preamble it so much. But one thing I really love about the Shawnee course is that it's not a simple 50 mile. Michael made sure that you get 4 free bonus miles there, which is so nice of him. I can't imagine a more generous race director, right? But you start off on the opening loop, which is kind of like a nice prologue to what you're about to get into in the actual day itself. There's that one climb on the backpack trail, and you head down that dirt road before you get onto the North Loop. So Jamie, why don't you take us through, running down the road, steep road as well, from the Shawnee Lodge onto the opening loop, how you were feeling as things, shook out, like finding yourself in the pack. Were you thinking of any goals or anything at that time, or you just like, let me just get onto, the North Loop? And James, I'll say that if you want to lead this one off.
Yeah, my strategy this year was a little bit different. I did try to run the first loop a little bit faster out of the lodge. I wanted to kind of get out there and just sort of feel what it's like to lead a race. I've never tried that before, and it worked out for me. And I was able to gain a considerable amount of ground and run at a clip that didn't feel too overexerting for me. But the trail was also really prime at that time. I felt like I could cruise the downhills on that first opening loop because the trail was softer due to the rain the previous night. So I felt pretty good on the first loop and enjoyed the solitude a bit out there.
And Jamie, what about you?
My goal was really to just try to stay relaxed and kind of just be in tune with my body, and also take nutrition early. So my downfall in races has been my stomach. So I was really trying to be conscious. I remember even in the first loop, like pulling out one of my bars and being like, all right, you have to start eating now. But yeah, I mean, I remember feeling relaxed, feeling good. And one of the things I guess I remember from the first loop, because it was still dark, was just looking up and how like dark and beautiful the sky was with the stars. So yeah, I was just trying to not put too much pressure on myself around where I was in placement or like how fast I was going. And I was just really going based on effort and feel, which I think worked out for me because I didn't get myself too worked up or psyched out about, what was next. It was just kind of like focusing on how I feel now.
Yeah, absolutely. Two very different approaches, but obviously they worked out for both of y'all. And now then going from the opening loop after, you hit that first aid station at mile 7, you're headed on the North Loop to the fire tower and then eventually down to Camp Oyo at the Boy Scout camp. Where are you feeling at this time? This part, it's a little bit more runnable than the back half. Jamie, are you still pressing on the gas now? Are you wanting to increase that lead? Or are you just kind of, I've got a lead, I'm just going to hold on to it for a while?
Since we've been going for over 30 minutes now, I'll try not to make this too long, but I actually went off course right after Fire Tower. It's no fault to Michael with marking the course. It was perfectly marked, but
you missed the right-hand turn.
Yeah. Instead of crossing the road that we were running on and going right back down into that trail section, I just took a sharp left and continued down the road for about 3/4 of a mile. So I probably added on about 1.5 miles to my day right there. And I kind of overexerted myself to get back on course. And I told myself it wasn't a big deal, like it happens, but it was kind of ironic because I was running with the first place 50K guy, and I think his name was Aaron, I believe. And him and I were talking about how you really have to pay attention in the dawn hours, or because you can easily get off course in an ultra. And 5 minutes after that, I totally got off course and kind of dug myself a little bit of a hole. But I was able to catch back up with people, the lead guys in the 50 mile at Camp Oyo, I believe is where it was. Or no, at is that Odell Creek after Fire Tower? Yeah.
No, I think you're right. It was at Camp Oyo because you were
Camp
still with
Oyo
me.
is the one, yeah, after Fire Tower.
Okay. Yep. So that's where, I was able to catch back up with the lead guys. So.
Mm-hmm. And then, Jamie, what was the North Loop like for you? Did you, and forgive me for not knowing this, but is this where you took the lead, or did you just kind of find yourself in the lead? And what
I guess
were those
I ended up,
emotions like?
yeah, I guess I was actually in the lead the whole time. So when I hit Fire Tower, the second place female was right with me. And I kind of realized at that point that I was leading, which made me nervous, but I was like, well, you're feeling good. So I turned on the gas a little bit leaving Fire Tower. I definitely felt like I wanted to try to like, look strong, try to, maybe get a bit of a lead. And honestly, I think once I realized I was leading, I just tried to gradually keep moving and just, not look behind me, because I was kind of wondering the whole time. I think it was sort of a feeling of like, I don't often lead races. I feel like I'm one of those that normally like I'll pick people off in the second half of a race. So it was one of those things where I was trying to not burn myself, down to the ground, but also pushing hard enough that I was like, I really would like to stay here and, make some progress. So it was a little bit of a balancing game and trying to figure out how to pace myself from there. Because I definitely think I turned on the gas a little after Fire Tower.
Absolutely. And this is a really important question for both y'all, but did either of you actually climb the Fire Tower?
No.
I did not.
No.
We did last year though. Did you climb it last year, Jamie? I think you did.
Yeah, oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, we
certainly.
did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have to admit, I have only attempted to go up the Fire Tower once. That was almost 2.5 years ago now. I went and I ran the backpack loop on my birthday, and I only made it up about halfway. I was alone.
Are you afraid of heights?
In my defense, not really, no. But just there's something about that Fire Tower in particular that like definitely sketched me out. So anybody who makes it to the top of that during a race, automatic kudos from me.
I heard that's where Michael Owen actually lives up there. I think that's his domicile.
That's, you know what? Maybe that's the vibe that I was getting. That was like, you don't belong up here. Go down. But so with that, right, we get into Camp Oyo and onto the back half of the race, which includes for both the 50 milers, the dark side, which is, I think, one of the only wilderness management areas in the entire state of Ohio. Where were you both at going into this? You both have spent plenty of time on the course. You know that the back half is harder. You know that the dark side, there's a lot of down trees because you can't use any power tools for trail cleaning. Are you trying to maintain leads? Are you trying to put extra time on people? Or are you just waiting and trying to get through things as best you can? And Jamie, if you want to lead this one off.
Yeah, I know I went through a bit of a low point. It was around mile 38. I think it was as we were kind of entering the dark side. I just remember it getting hot and climbing some of the hills and onto the ridge lines. I was feeling the heat a little bit and trying to kind of manage. I didn't want to overheat, but I was also trying to still kind of keep, at a decent pace. So I remember being a little like unsure of how I was going to get through the rest of the race from there. But once I hit really the main part of the dark side and had to, climb all the trees, I always find it a little bit maybe frustrating to go so slow because you feel like, oh my gosh, I want to be going faster and you just can't there. But I also thought it was so beautiful that I tried to kind of take it in and tell myself like no one else is like sprinting through this either. Like everyone has to climb these trees. But it definitely was maybe even more trees than I remember the last time I was there. So I think I was just trying to like be patient, not trip and fall and maim myself. But yeah, I calmed down, I think, then shortly thereafter and kind of got myself, into a better mental frame set. I just think that it's sometimes in the middle of a 50 miler in that like 35 to 40-ish range, things get start falling off the tracks a little bit.
Yeah. After Fire Tower, I sort of did that sprint to catch back up with the people that ended up leaving me. And I met up with a guy named, he's from Michigan, and Matt Ramiller, and he was a great partner to run, I think, 5 miles of trail with to kind of get my spirits back up. And then we ran into the man himself, Nick Voss, and I probably shared close to 7 miles with you, or 7 to 10, would you say?
At least, I think, yeah, it was probably in the 10 ballpark. I think I was on like mile 8 or 9, and we stayed together until like 19-ish from my watch. So,
which was excellent. So I was having a lot of fun catching up with those two for the middle part of the race. And I really didn't feel like I was competing at all. We just kind of relaxed into a nice conversational pace and kept our conversation flowing almost the entire time. So the middle part of the race flew by for me. I mean, I was paying attention to the scenery, and the sunshine was coming out. It was getting it was overcast at that point, so it was still pretty manageable. I guess it didn't get hot till the end, but at Hangover was when the third place male named Adam caught up to Matt and I, and he was charging along. So into the dark side, that's when the first place guy, he kind of took the lead, and he was just too hard to keep up with. So Matt and I just kept it cool and enjoyed the nice long run together. But the trees, they were pretty atrocious at times. Like they're up to your, I can't imagine being, if you're 5 foot tall or any shorter than 6 foot, because they would have totally knocked you off your kilter. But
I'm 5'5", by the way, and I was literally launching myself over them.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the strategy might be to get over those trees. Is it, do you try and step up on them? Do you roll over top of them? Jump, clear the whole thing? I feel like I had like
a lot of intimate moments with the trees personally. Yeah.
I was imagining
them.
Yeah. I was imagining a steeplechase strategy, like getting over the water jump. That's roughly the speed you guys are going on the dark side, right?
Oh yeah. It was
it's interesting
Olympic
too.
Effort.
I don't know if it's is that a wilderness area over there too? And I think if so, it's actually, usually you're not allowed to use any power tools or anything like that for trail maintenance. So it makes it kind of an interesting piece of the race for sure.
It's so beautiful though. It's such a great area. Yeah.
So talk about a little bit.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it definitely is a wilderness area, but they also have on that side, there's some of the most cruiser downhill double track sections too. So there is a little bit of relief over there.
Yeah.
And talk about, I haven't done the whole course or much of anything past Camp Oyo actually on the 50-mile course. So talk a little bit about, I guess, for anyone who's looking to step it up, maybe who did the 50K this year and wants to try the 50-mile next year, talk about the aid station support on the other side, because I saw some pictures and it looked like they were having a good time. And if I remember correctly, they kind of the gap shortens a little bit between aid stations, which probably really helps. So start with that one, Jamie.
I loved I always loved the one with Darth Vader and kind of the dark side aid station. They're fabulous there. And then they always have wonderful foods. So they had tater tots this year, which are like one of my favorite foods of all time. So I was extremely happy to get there after, a number of pretty big climbs, and it was pretty hot in the day. That was lovely. And I think in general, the aid stations were awesome. I mean, they had great food. They were just really, like I said, at mile 38-ish, I remember the woman at the aid station was just super encouraging, was just like not letting me be negative. And yeah, I thought the volunteers were fabulous. I was really grateful.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. The aid stations were incredibly well stocked, and the volunteers were super cheerful the entire day. Shout out to the crew from, I guess it wasn't all Northern Ohio, but Chadwick and Mark and Josh at the, I guess it was Pond Lick Aid Station with the Grateful Dead theme. That one was incredible. I don't think it's technically on the dark side yet, but it's a good pick-me-up right before you get to it. And I loved the Hangover Aid Station. At that point, you're craving some solid foods, and they always have it well stocked there. So it kind of sets you off on the right foot, and you have, the majority of the race behind you at that point. So it's just kind of gritting your teeth and charging onto the finish line and trying to enjoy yourself as much as you can, because it's a celebration to be out there, and you shouldn't be in too low of a place, because we're all so fortunate to be able to be out there and have that wilderness experience so close to home if you live in Ohio. So it's a cherished place, at least for me.
Absolutely. Great answer. And that's a great attitude to have out there on race day. And so to kind of transition away from this, right, and talking about things that are wonderful and made you all happy. But also in every ultra, there's going to be low moments. And on this course, what were the lowest moments for each of you guys? I know James already talked about 2018, thinking of DNFing. I'm assuming there was none of those kinds of thoughts this year, James?
No, not to sound self-righteous or anything, but I actually didn't have a low moment in the race. Even getting off course, it just kind of, made me mad at myself for being just that type of runner that has their head up their rear end and not paying attention. But, I didn't really feel any lows. I was able to maintain eating, and my stomach didn't go awry. So I was just in conversation and keeping it conversational, like I said, the whole time. So it just flew by. And I think going into a race healthy really helps if you're not overtrained and you may be tapered well enough. Like and you keep your calories up in a race, sometimes they just come together for you. And that's kind of how I felt on this day. So low moments, that's not a very exciting answer, I know, but I didn't really have too many low ones, especially seeing Nick Voss out there. It just really helped me, get through those middle moments. And so it was good.
Oh, you helped me too. I definitely would have been. I would have been in a deeper hole. I think I was getting just a little lonely out there myself, just because they're just not as many people at that point in the race. Since the 50Kers skipped that opening loop, most of the 50-mile people were behind us. So I was definitely getting a little bit into that. Some of those negative thoughts about wondering, how your body's going to feel later in the race if it's already feeling a certain way. And it was a welcome addition to just not think about that stuff anymore and just kind of stick with you and Matt. And that was I think for me it was really key to be able to just knock out those middle miles.
It really helps to have someone to run with in an ultra, and in a 50-mile distance where you can't employ a pacer, it is so helpful to latch on to another runner, and couldn't recommend that enough.
It seemed like Matt was really keen on just kind of sticking with you too. Did he ever, talk about some of your interactions with him? Was it just straight up friendship kind of the whole way, or did he ever like try to test you a little? Or I know he's also a fairly new ultra runner too. So what was that like?
He was definitely starting to hurt at the end. So there was some moments where I felt like it kind of helped me to avoid low moments, because I was talking him out of some of his, and it was great. It was almost instant friendship. We have a lot of similar interests of skateboarding and just various things from our youth. And he's one of those guys that was easy to talk to. And when you're out there sharing miles with someone, it's a pretty intimate experience. So we totally got into the deep conversations about our philosophies of life. And it was just a classic ultra marathon moment later on in the race after we departed Nick. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, right on. Jamie, did you get to latch on to any runners and kind of have those conversations, or did you run by yourself most of the way? Uh-oh, she might have froze.
I was going to say, did we lose her? I was going to say, that's kind of like a long look. But
I think she's frozen in time.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will go ahead and just push on with this. We'll Yeah, if she comes back, we'd love to hear more and hear the answer to that question. Oh, there she goes. All right. If we need to, yeah, we'll do what we need to do, but we are running up on 8:50 now. And so kind of to transition back, right? You talked about how, James, you didn't really have a low moment during this race, but then what was kind of the highest moment for you? Was it crossing that finish line? Was it, the kind of easy friendship that you fall into when you're sharing miles with somebody? What was the thing at this race that made you the happiest?
It was probably knowing that, the people out there that, were manning the aid stations and, my parents that showed up for the day, that they were all having a good time too. And like, it just like fed my positivity, and like, just to be out there again, doing these races with the community, that was probably the highlight of my day. Just like knowing that, and being, past the 50, percent mark in a race, you're trying to maintain that positivity. So like, I would say the second half of the race was definitely like my high point, because I knew that it was in the bag at that point if I just kept going on with the same strategy I've been doing all day long. And once you get to the very end and you're running that same trail that you started on the day, that it's almost over, and you have some pizza and beer waiting for you at back of the lodge. Which, shout out the Shawnee State Park Lodge. They were a great host for the event. The waitress in there at the restaurant was super friendly and serving up pizza and beer afterwards. And anyone that does the race in the future, just think about that. Like, you have a really awesome meal to look forward to at the end, and it's great. Michael Owen's there waiting for you too. So that was definitely my high point.
Absolutely. Great answer there. Well,
Oh, there she is.
yep.
Sorry about that, guys. Don't know what happened.
Hey,
Yeah.
no worries. We're back,
Great.
and that's good to know, because John has not gotten back to my SOS text yet. So, it helps when you are friends with guys who really know tech stuff, and then when they have actual things to do, you end up with me and Nick running the show. But anyways, the question you missed, Jamie, as we kind of just pushed on with James there, is, we talked a little bit about low moments, and I don't think we heard your answer for your lowest moment of the race. So if you'd like to include this as well, feel free. But the last one we asked was, what was the moment in this race that brought you the most joy?
Oh, that's a good question. It must have been the final climb up to the finish, when I knew that, it was in the bag. I remember my husband was filming me as I came up the hill, and I remember just stopping and giving him a kiss and being like, I got this. I think my actual words were "fuck yes," but because I just, like I said, I had a bad couple races, and I really felt like this was like a bit of a comeback for me and just confidence booster. I guess in low moments, I don't really feel like I had a super low moment either. I mentioned, around mile 38, I definitely felt like things were getting a little hard. It was getting a little hot. And I will say, my stomach didn't go well the last few miles. So probably the hardest for me was, I don't think I was really taking in any calories, probably the last 7-8 miles. So I definitely by the end was a little fatigued in that way. I still haven't quite wrestled the demons of ultra running stomach issues, but I wouldn't say it was anything too bad that I couldn't manage through it.
Great answer, E. Love that answer, and feel free to use profanity on this show. I know we're a little late for me to make that announcement, but especially in the context, right? You definitely love to hear about those fuck yeah moments. You got something to add, Jamie?
I have a quick question for
Sure.
Jamie. What do you find that works the best for you in ultras, and maybe what is the least effective as far as aid station foods go?
The problem is, for me, it depends on the day. Like, I guess in general, what works best is probably mostly like things like potatoes. But then also lately I've been doing more liquid nutrition and gels. And I thought that was going okay, but then it stopped going okay at some point in Shawnee. So I think it somewhat depends on the day with me. Beer actually works really well. Like, I mean, not too much of it, but like, I think it settles my stomach. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out. That's still one of the main reasons I think I've struggled with the 100-mile distance. Yeah. What about you?
In hundreds, I for sure try to consume more substantial foods like potatoes, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, Fig Newtons. That's probably my all-time favorite.
Oh, I like Fig Newtons. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what got me through Leadville, no doubt. Just gobs of Fig Newtons. But in this race, I tried to do mostly liquid calories. And I think that really helped with my bathroom situation throughout the day. I was able to keep that at a bare minimum, which was great. And I also really think that if you can combine your liquid, calories with a couple extra foods in there, you're getting close to that 300 calories an hour. And usually if it's not too fibrous, then I have no problem digesting those, but it's constantly, I think, a struggle later in the race when you're trying new foods, because the ones that you're used to start to taste less appealing, and you try something different and then you just quit eating for the last like 10 miles. That's probably the biggest struggle with me, is like I ended up grabbing a brownie the very last aid station and I couldn't stomach it. It wasn't that it was a bad brownie. It was any other time I would have loved it, but it was like I literally spit it out in the last 4 miles. I was like, nope, there's pizza at the end. You just burn some fat or something.
I love that you're making sure that you're fair to the brownie there in that situation.
Yeah. No dig on the brownie.
Yeah. Well, we all know about the brownies at the Leadville 100.
Oh yeah.
But with that said, we'll wrap this up. This is the last question we'll ask before we get into our quick questions that we love to do at the end of these shows. I think updated since you were last on, Jamie. But this is shamelessly stolen from the Blister Off the Couch podcast by me. But no worries about that. But what is the best question that we haven't asked yet? And James, if you want to take this one first.
Yes, and this one has already been put out into the air. When is Michael going to have the Shawnee 100? That's it. I think he needs to do a double.
Did Wesley put you up to this?
No, but it's been in the lore, that's for sure. Yeah. So I don't know if this will really do anything, because I know how big of a commitment that is to make 100 out of thin air, but I think it would be incredibly challenging.
Would you rather be two loops, or kind of take on some forest roads and make it more of an intuitive loop?
That's a good idea. I would be open to that for sure.
Just I want Edge of Appalachia, the Edge of Appalachia section. I want that to be part of it. I love that section.
Yeah, I wonder if there's maybe like a public Strava route that includes Edge of Appalachia and the Shawnee Forest. Nobody's Strava account in this group has that route on there. Anyways, Jamie, what about you? What's the best question that we haven't asked you yet?
Oh, you haven't asked me. Well, I have to admit, one of the first things that I knew about Jamie Hanks before I actually met him in person was about a tattoo that he has. So I thought maybe we would be talking about tattoos tonight, and no one asked about me about a tattoo or him about where his tattoo is.
Okay, is it time for the tattoo show and tell, Jamie?
Oh, no.
I was gonna say all mine are gonna stay covered.
I just remember that I never met Jamie before, but I only knew of him through his tattoo. My friends had told me about his very special tattoo.
Let's just say, if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. What happens in the Shawnee Forest stays in the Shawnee Forest.
Oh man, that's yep. Well, Ridge Runner Nation, if you know, you know. And we'll move on to our quick questions now. So we'll start and we'll do these a little more rapid fire. James, if you want to take, we'll just say for ease of use, right, that you'll go first, and then Jamie, you'll answer him second. Does that work?
That's all right.
All right. And so what is one thing you can't leave an aid station without?
A refill of water and hydration mix.
If they have beer, it would be beer.
Great answer. Two very different answers, but great answers.
I ditto that one though. If they have beer, that's certainly coming.
And so what has been your weirdest mid-race hallucination or the strangest thing you've seen somebody eat at an aid station?
Oh, I would say the strangest thing I've seen at an aid station was probably Zach Bitter in Arizona, just like totally kind of like heat exhausted and off route. Just come off of route, and he was like just getting ready to DNF at the Black Canyon 100. So that was probably the craziest thing I saw at an aid station ever. And then I've never had a hallucination in 100, so nothing too crazy as far as that goes.
Didn't have a hallucination, but one of the weirdest things I saw during 100 was randomly during Mohican, and maybe you saw this too, Jamie. There was a Fauci doll just sitting in the forest with like a light around it, and you could like see this like Anthony Fauci just like glowing in the forest. There's a picture of it, so it was real. I didn't hallucinate.
Oh,
that.
wow.
But that was weird. Maybe in terms of the weirdest things people eat, I've seen people eat like blocks of cheese, which totally, like, I don't eat cheese in like real life. So I feel like during ultra, I'm like, anything dairy is just like, what? Like, how does that sit well? But yeah, maybe that. Oh, actually, no. Tim Crow, my good friend Tim Crow wants dairy products. Like he wants ice cream and like iced coffees with all this cream. And I'm like, that is like literally like the worst thing I could possibly think for my stomach. But he loves that. Yeah, he does great. I think it's
kind of weird. Yeah, it's kind of weird seeing Chadwick Robinson run the opposite direction with a Kogalla light, third loop and fourth loop at Mohican this year. He looked like a walking, like one of those like crazy LED lights you see on the front of the jacked up trucks. Yeah, he was just plowing through the forest in the opposite direction. Everyone was tired. That was probably the weirdest thing too. But
all right, great answers. I don't know how I missed the Fauci doll. I was at Mohican this year as well, and I'm concerned.
I'll have to send you a picture. It's creepy. It's actually creepy.
Yeah, we didn't see that, did we?
If we saw it, I have repressed that memory so deep. Like it's gonna take therapy to get that back out. But so one of our new quick questions is, which ball sport do you think you could beat the majority of other ultra runners in?
I don't think there is a ball sport. I suck with that's kind of why I quit them all and took up running.
I'm the same. Terrible. I'm not coordinated. Yeah, I'm terrible. Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to say golf, but that's definitely not true. Definitely not true. So we'll just say golf, but everyone knows they would actually beat me.
Okay.
And so same thing, Jamie, just not a ball sports person?
Not a ball sports person.
We'll go ahead. Kickball, right? We'll throw that one out there. I think that counts. Let's go wide with our ball sports. All right. So this is another one that we really love, just because I think it's so ridiculous. But would you rather fight one chicken on day 1, 2 chickens on day 2, 3 chickens on day 3, and so on for an entire calendar year? Or you get a calendar year to train to fight one mountain lion. And each day you have to fight these chickens. You don't get anything but the clothes on your back. You get the calendar year, you're training to fight the mountain lion. You can get a sword and armor. Which one of these are you going to take?
For sure, the mountain lion. Back in 2018, there's a Fort Collins guy that got attacked by one and killed it with his bare hands. So that is confidence inspiring to me. So I'm thinking
that was a baby mountain lion.
I remember that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. At any rate, if we can have swords, then definitely mountain lion.
Yeah, chickens, I'm gonna go with mountain lion as well. Yeah, I'm gonna say the same.
Awesome. Great answers. Our first ever real life example pulled into this question. I'm waiting on somebody to talk about how easy it is to kill a chicken with their bare hands because they've done it. And that's when we'll know the show's too intense and we'll get rid of this question.
Not 100 chickens though.
Do you have to deal with the repercussions of animal rights activists afterwards that when you kill the mountain lion? That's
we haven't thought that far ahead. I don't quite know. I feel like, to be honest though, just knowing like PETA and that kind of thing, if you ritualistically fought hundreds of chickens each day for a year, I think they might just have more opportunity to protest you.
Yeah, it's a little bit more socially accepted though to kill chickens. So I don't know. It's debatable now in my mind.
All right. And so this is a question we love. We've got a Spotify playlist called Tunes of the Nation that you can, if you search on Spotify for Ridge Runners, you can find. But if ultra running had walk-up songs like baseball, what would yours be?
It would probably be something not from the 80s. Let's just put that, because I cannot stand 80s music. So any song that doesn't come from the 80s, I'd be fine with.
Okay. And like 1880s, right? 1980s are still good?
No 1980s songs. I'm sorry to all my parents' friends and my parents. Just no 80s songs. Sorry. I'd probably do something from the 70s though. That's fine. Maybe like an early Neil Young song.
Okay. And what about you, Jamie?
I don't know. It's kind of cheesy, but I feel like I'd do like Eye of the Tiger or something like that.
Good answer. I feel like you can't go too cheesy on this. This is hyping you up. You're running into an aid station, right? Like I don't think you can go too cheesy. All right.
Not.
And so this is our last question, and then we'll let everybody go. But if you could run with one person in the history of the world, they aren't a runner, we're going to say they're running with you. They're going to keep your pace. You're going to have a nice conversational long run with them. Who would it be and why?
That's a deep question. I like it. I think, to be honest, it would probably be John Muir, I would say. I think he'd be a cool guy to run with. As you can see, I love the national parks and everything with the Yosemite picture back there. So I would say probably John Muir. So he could tell me about the early days of exploring the mountains of the West and everything.
And Jamie?
Yeah, I know she's already a super famous ultra runner, so she fits that category, but I'd love to meet and run with Courtney Dauwalter. It's totally a huge fangirl. So
great answer. Honestly, like those people are kind of larger than life in a way in our very niche sport. If anybody is an ultra runner who's getting like stopped at the grocery store and asked questions, it's probably her, right? But that you can have, I love that about this sport, that there are these regular people who can also be larger than life and that we can look up to. But great answers there. I want to give you all a second. If you have anybody to plug, any sponsors, any shout outs you want to give, now's the time.
I'm a Noon ambassador, drink Noon.
Shout out Fig Newton, just want to get that's going to be my next tattoo. It's like Ricky Bobby on the front of his race car, just big old Fig Newton right across here.
And shout out Michael Owen. It was a great race. I think we should shout out to him too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We've given him we've given him enough little jabs with the talk about the Shawnee 100, Yeah. But so thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you tuned in and made it this far to the end, why don't you subscribe to our YouTube channel? If you're listening later on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, don't worry, we love y'all too. If you would like, we'd really appreciate it if you would leave a rating and a review for us. And also subscribe to us on those platforms. We're available wherever you get podcasts. We had on Jamie Hanks and Jaime Fensterl tonight for Ridge Runners Live number 70. We will be live 3 times next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all at 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you've made it here, we're about to have 5 shows in 2 weeks. This is a record for us. So
that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're very stoked on it, and there's just so much cool stuff happening that we want to highlight in this community. So, we had to make it happen. But yeah, with that said, we want to thank y'all again so much for joining us. We hope you had a good time because we certainly did. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.